Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The POPsicle, a sweet new show where our guest and I will lap up what's new in pop culture. My name is RJ from RJ's Food Rocks, and today we have a very special guest for a very special episode. She's your hero, she's my hero, she's gender's hero. It is Chris. Hi, Chris.
Hello! Hi, RJ.
Today on The POPsicle, we will be unwrapping the series WandaVision on Disney Plus. So all 9 episodes are on Disney Plus right now. So if you're watching this and you haven't seen it, we will be spoiling. So there's your warning. But here is your TCDE, Too Cold Didn't Eat. Living idealized suburban lives, superpowered beings Wanda and Vision begin to suspect that everything is not as it seems. So this is the first series in phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is what we're calling the like post-Infinity War era. And it's the first series in that phase, and it picks up from the aftermath of the Infinity War. Wanda, played by Elizabeth Olsen, faces her trauma and grief from making the choice of destroying her true love Vision to protect his Infinity Stone, only to be forced to relive it by Thanos. So that's like where we were just at. The given circumstances, if you will. The moment before. So the series starts right in the middle of Wanda's new reality. She's played by Elizabeth Olsen, like I've said, and her and Vision, played by Paul Bettany, are the stars of their sitcoms from each decade, from I Love Lucy, Bewitched, The Brady Bunch, and more of that reality is broken as they evolve through time. We meet other characters such as Monica Rambeau, played by Tiana Paris, who tries to save Wanda from her own destructive powers. Other stars in the show include Randall Park, Kat Dennings, Evan Peters, Deborah Jo Rupp, Emma Caulfield, and the one and only Catherine Hahn as Agnes. A funny note about the show is that all of the theme songs, yes, praise to Agnes. One of the great note about the show is that all the theme songs were created, all originally written and produced and composed by the dynamic music and lyrics duo of Robert and Kristen Anderson Lopez, who is famous for their work in the Frozen franchise. All right, there's all the tea right before we will talk about WandaVision, because there is so much really to talk about the series. Chris, what is your background on Marvel characters, and Wanda specifically?
I am a big nerd over here. I watched all 3 phases of the MCU pretty much opening day in theaters and would sort of run immediately to the internet to Google what I had just watched. I do not have a big bench of comics background, so I haven't read the original stories, but I've read about the original stories. I'm all in. I'm all in on the shared universe. I'm all in on the big connected storytelling. I love genre. I was originally introduced to Wanda Maximoff through the X-Men franchise, and so there's the messy rights situation where Marvel could not call her the Scarlet Witch. There was a shared understanding of the X-Men. Fox had Scarlet Witch the X-Person, and Marvel was allowed to use Wanda Maximoff, but couldn't use the word mutant or the word Scarlet Witch. So that's more of where I know her from.
Yeah, I know that like talk about rights and how they're supposed to like name each other. We weren't allowed, like Marvel Cinematic Universe wasn't allowed to like say the word mutant or even allude to the fact of like that's the genesis of why there are superhumans in the world. So this was kind of really the first time they've not only said the word Scarlet Witch as to refer to Wanda, but really kind of talk about, you know, superhumans outside of how we originally know them as like, you know, scientific experiments gone wrong. In our show, like any popsicle, we talk about how sweet things are, which is famously popsicles are very sweet in nature. So let's talk about the sweet of WandaVision. I channeled our theater professor from college and wrote down the word verisimilitude, because I feel like that is truly like the epicenter of the show. Ah, yes. Just the perfect recreations of like these sitcoms that Wanda is trying to create with her own reality, from the intro music to the theme songs to how they looked to even the conventions, like the aspect ratios were standard
Yep.
before they went into widescreen, as they went into like the 2000s era. And they almost used that convention breaking as a way to tell the story of like her reality is falling apart by like having them talk over the rolling credits, or having the aspect ratio
Yep.
change as like she goes in and out of like what her reality is and what the reality she's creating. And to me, and I'm sure you feel the same way, but like the theater person in me was just like, yes, feed me, yes.
One of my favorite moments from the whole series was when I think it's the end of episode 3 when she finds out she's pregnant. So she's created a world where where Wanda is about to have babies, and her and Vision sort of share a moment. And not only is it the moment where we're moving from I think the 60s into the 70s or 70s into the 80s, but the aspect ratio changes as color fills the screen, and that's the end of the episode. And it's so good. And so I lost my mind. I lost my mind.
Truly, we all screamed. You know, like how I consume theater and like TV. Adam and I literally were screaming, and every time it happened, it was like the sides. Look at the sides of the screen; it's stretching.
Audio kind of throughout, like that's one of the more subtle things. And the first handful of episodes, right, were really in this universe that Wanda's created in her head in Westview, where it's this sort of idealized America, and the audio codec, specifically how the show sounds, moves through the decades as well. And you notice that when
Yeah.
in the moments when we start to leave Westview in Wanda's bubble, where we start to see the outside world, and all of a sudden it feels more like an MCU movie, right? It's got all of the modern bells and whistles, but just the way, the attention to detail, the verisimilitude, um, just incredible.
Like Adam and I are used to hearing like canned laughter and actors acting to the fourth wall because we watch like Golden Girls every night. Like we're still in that mode. Like we're so used to it. But I remembered seeing tweets from those first 2 episodes of people are like, I'm just not, it's just throwing me off. Why are they so this and that? I'm like, that's the point. They are trying to, they're not even parodying the sitcoms. She is trying to perfectly recreate it.
I love that there wasn't parody. It was reference without parody. It was sort of this loving homage to. I don't know if they used the Dick Van Dyke set, but if they didn't, it was very similar. These sort of like loving
Yeah.
loving love letters to these shows that some people may have, like, I grew up with a bunch of them, but some people may not have. And the other thing that I think is great is that everyone has their jumping on points, right? You get the last sort of sitcom that we get. It's a Modern Family spoof, and we get Lizzie Olsen doing her absolute a perfect Julie Bowen.
Elizabeth Olsen's acting, I think, really stood out to me as like, wow. I mean, I knew she's good. We've seen like her progress in the movies, but because she was playing such a character, like a really deep character of like, I have been a science experiment for most of my life, so I don't know like how to be a person really, like, and to see her just like fully evolve into now her performing in these different sitcoms as grounded as she's doing it, like you said, the Modern Family, it's so perfect. It's like, yes, it's this like chill overworked mom. It's so good. I want to throw in like the other performances in the show too that I feel like are really good. Monica Rambeau, played by Tiana Paris, is so good. Her stakes in it are so deep because if you are a fan of the movies, you know that like, okay, this is a character that we saw as a child in Captain Marvel's movie, and seeing her as a grown up, and not only have to go through like, my mom died, also I was snapped, so she died, and and she was alone, like, and never got to see her, and also like I'm dealing with like the world's trauma and myself, and having to be like, also now I have to, it gave her the stakes to really want to try and help Wanda, because she's like, I know what you're going through, like please don't destroy the world. It was just so good, and she did a really good job with it, I think.
I mean, Tiani Paris, I think, is another awesome example of someone who, like, she's in it, and like there's no there aren't a lot of actors who can make some of this like mumbo jumbo sound convincing and take it really seriously, but um, the way that
Yeah.
she's so grounded
Yeah.
and is able to sort of like she approaches the stakes of coming back from the blip. So I love that that is our non-comedic introduction to what the aftermath is. We get like fun little bites of it in Far From Home, but her the fact that this is our
Yes.
introduction to what a post blip world is through her eyes. I think is awesome, and I'm hopeful from a nerd perspective. I think they're setting her up for something big, a role that was um, for comic book fans. I think that she's going to be Photon moving forward. I'm excited to see what she does in Captain Marvel 2. We see her get superpowers at the end, and no, I agree. I think those performances were total standouts to me.
Yeah, what I loved about Monica's superpower like genesis was that it not only was it so visually appealing, I was fully like, "Oh my god, they're giving you so much in this like literally like what, a minute and a half sequence." It's show not because she's breaking through Wanda's like big barrier, and in it basically like her genetic like building is like physically mutating and changing, and you're seeing like different representations of her when she was in Wanda's world, and also you're hearing clips of her mom talk, Captain Marvel talk from the movie, and it's just like I was just like, oh my god, this is amazing. This is like true, like visual, like storytelling at its finest. And you just feel the layers of it. And yeah, I think she is so set up for like amazing success. And I'm so excited to see what she's gonna do next.
There's a level of like restraint in some of the storytelling that we lose toward the end, but the fact that the only
Yes.
clue we get to her having powers in that episode is her eyes change color, and that's it. And we don't really see the extent of her powers until a little bit later. We still don't totally know. She blocks bullets once later, but like there's no, we don't, she doesn't get to really take part in that big super fight at the end. So I'm excited to see sort of where they take her.
We have to talk about the biggest suite of this entire series, which, yes, everyone did a great job, but it's all about Catherine Hahn as
It's her
Agnes.
show.
And there is a big reveal. There's a big reveal where Agnes is revealed as truly Agatha, who is like the bigger villain. And um just not only did she twist the like they literally let her play with it and wrote her this amazing song that has been like number one on iTunes for like 2 weeks now. Like it's just
And there's no for even I watching it. I read all the theories. Everyone was like, "Oh, Agnes is Agatha Harkness. It's going to happen." I was like, "Okay, maybe," but she's just the sort of friendly, fuddy-duddy neighbor, and she's having a grand old time in each of these sitcom eras. In the '80s episode, she's in her like jazzercise best, like lounging in the living room, um, and and when
yeah.
we finally get that villain twist, where she comes down in like a sensible sweater, oh,
Yes.
she's just having the best time. And you mentioned Agatha All Along, where the I love the song too, but for me, it's that montage we get of her sort of we get a montage of her throughout the entire show, just looking and just
Yeah.
winking at the camera and being like, "Yep, I did this. I was responsible for that. I'm causing this chaos. I'm causing that chaos." Which is just it makes me want to rewatch the show, and that I think is such a rare treat.
It's not every day that I rewatch a series or want to get into rewatching an entire series, but they did a really good job of being like, you're gonna want to watch this again. And I think Catherine Hahn is like one of the major things about it.
Wanda very pointedly does not kill her at the end and says, if I need you, I know where to find you." And I think they're sort of giving themselves this out of anytime we need Catherine Hahn, we're going to pull her back in, and I'm very excited about it.
Catherine did the best line reading I have ever seen in my entire life, which is her screaming when Wanda finally makes it to her like weird chamber. She just goes, "These are runes, Wanda." I just It's so good. And like they kept repeating that same clip over and over again. And the reveal was that at the final episode, Wanda learns how to make runes to beat Agatha. Like that was like the full turn. She was like, "Thanks for teaching me how to be a witch, girl. Thanks." Ugh.
I love that payoff. I love that it was only over the course of a couple of episodes. And what you said, like that's the way she delivered that. That's just her personality. It wasn't. It wasn't. I mean, it was camp, like conceptually, but it wasn't Catherine Hahn playing campy. Do you know what I mean? She was so
Yes.
just she just consistent and level, and even when they're having their big CGI fight where they're throwing magic at each other, she's so consistent. My favorite line reading, I think, is still the anytime that she makes fun of the accent. I think is just so funny. Like, wow, that accent really goes in and out, doesn't it? I think is just the summation of so many fan conversations since the Maximoff twins were introduced.
Truly, because like everyone has always said that, like, what is going on with this accent? And that when they finally just like acknowledged it, ugh, chef's kiss. Man, this is it shows that like when a series is just allowed to, when stories in this universe are allowed to just like breathe, it really pays off. And
Yep.
so I really hope we get to do more of this with future characters. We finally got the reveal of her iconic headdress. Like we got a teaser of it in Halloween. She was dressed up as quote unquote like the devil, but really she was dressed up as Scarlet Witch. And we finally got that iconic look in the final scene. And I really loved it. Love the perm. Love her like the neckline. It had the like shape of the Mind Stone on it. So a lot of fans were like, oh, it's her
Mhm.
homage to Vision. So I'm happy that it came out as good as it did.
The outfit and the fact that we had Agatha up in the air going, "You are the Scarlet Witch." It was felt a little like Disney just looking at Fox and going, "It's ours now."
So good.
On brand. We didn't talk about any of the men,
Who cares?
um,
It's not their
but there are
show. Who
a
cares?
couple. But two of the men who I think are doing great work here. One is the another actor who I think is just having Paul Bettany is having the time of his damn life. Like
So good.
he is having so much fun. There was a lot of sort of fan speculation when he said, "Oh, I get to work with an actor that I've always wanted to work with," and it turned out to be himself, and that was him just trolling fans. And I think that's delightful. He does a great.
God.
There's a an homage to The Office in one of the episodes where he's sitting outside the ice cream truck with Darcy, and he's just having a grand old time. And I I'm thankful that we got the comic book version of Killing Vision. So we got all of the emotional breakdown of the Vision that we know who dies in Wanda's arms. But his full consciousness has been transported into this other Vision, which is just a very comic books way of saying we killed someone, but we didn't really kill that person. Another person I'll call out is Jimmy Woo. Give us
So
more of Agent
good.
Woo. Give us more of Randall Park. Um, I want to see him. I love him. I think he's so fun. There's a smart payoff to anyone who watched Ant-Man, because he
Yes.
really
Yes.
envied Paul Rudd's Ant-Man's magic tricks in the first Ant-Man. Um, and so we get a couple of references of like, oh, he's been studying close-up magic. And I think him and Kat Dennings as Darcy Lewis are having just a grand old time. I want to see them in a comedy. I want to see them in a rom-com. I love both of them so much.
I know. I want to see them literally solve every mystery. It became like Scooby Doo all of a sudden, where it's like her and the
Yeah.
three of them, and it was so fun to watch. Being the script now on the show, and we're gonna talk about how when popsicles get a little melty, they tend to get a little sticky. So let's talk about the sticky. I'm gonna skip right into yes, the fan theories were out of control for the show because of the fact that it was the first time I feel like our culture has digested a like a drama, like a procedure, like a drama that changes week to week. And it gave me like Lost vibes, like when Lost was very popular and everyone was coming out with theories and
Mhm.
websites about what could be going on. But it was funny because, like, for Adam and I, we were like, I think it's very clear what they're doing. So it is funny to see people on the internet lose their minds. Like, why is it a sitcom? I'm like, clearly she's doing it because she's grieving. Like, have people not experienced trauma and grief before so they couldn't understand the concept of Wanda creating her own world? My God.
I was as guilty as anyone else. I loved reading all the fan theories. I think it partially is because I mean, we've gone how long now since a Marvel? Like, we haven't had a Marvel thing. We haven't had a superhero thing because we Black Widow keeps getting pushed. There's sort of this big question mark over what the future of it's going to be, and it's just so theorizable because it was set up as this mystery. But I like the Lost is such a good comp for me because I think there was this sort of monoculture moment where we were all really excited, and if you're a big fan of the comics, you've been wondering. This is the first product or project that we've gotten since the X-Men are legally allowed into the MCU, and so suddenly you've got this story about someone who we know is the Scarlet Witch. We're like, it's got to be. We're going to get X-Men, and we had the Disney Investor Day when we all found out there was a Fantastic Four movie. And we were like, okay, we're going to get Fantastic Four. I can't wait to learn about Fantastic Four. So Reed Richards got into the conversation, which I think was insane, but also I was all in.
I think that's kind of why I'm saying it was a sticky, because it ended up being like people hyped up their own version of what the show was going to be, to the point where it's like, well, you didn't fulfill my own personal wish for the show, so how dare you?
The place where they went wrong for me, the place where I was all in. I love the fan theories, even when they go wrong, just because I think that's a fun conversation. But for me, the place where this show misstepped was the way they used Evan Peters and the way that they just trolled fans. And and it was a troll because they named his character Ralph Boner, which to me felt like such a like, haha, we got you. That I was like, come on, really?
Yeah, I knew that when he came, I was like, okay. I fell into it too, right? I was like, okay, this is a new reality. Everything that comes out of this reality becomes real. Like, they mentioned that Monica's DNA was changing, and the helicopter that she flew in changed shape. So when this ends and they come out, this made up version of Pietro will be a real Pietro, and he becomes the real Quicksilver. And when they did the reveal, I was kind of like, okay, I am seeing the boardroom meeting now. I am seeing Kevin
Yeah.
Feige being like,
Yes.
okay, I understand that I'm getting X-Men. I'm not doing X-Men. I'm not giving them, I'm not just copy pasting. We're going to have to create our own way. So this will buy us
Mm-hmm.
some time. Get Evan Peters on the phone, and but this is not how we're going to give it to them. And I was like, okay, fine. I understand. I am a corporate. I. It's a
And
corporation. I got it.
I thought when so for context for anyone listening, the big deal with this is that because of that shared contract, right? We had Aaron Taylor Johnson played Pietro Quicksilver in the MCU, and Evan Peters was playing him in the X-Men franchise with Fox. And so when all of a sudden the Pietro that shows up at the MCU Wanda's door is Fox's Quicksilver, my group chats were all talking about, oh, is Disney just going to go ahead and canonize everything Fox did? Which would be a move. That's a choice. And
Yeah.
I was like that, and I'm in the same boat. I saw the board meeting, and I was like, did Kevin Feige just do this? Did he really just do this? And what that means is you inherit Hugh Jackman, you inherit tragically, you inherit Dark Phoenix, and that for the 10 people who saw that, I'm sure that's very exciting. But like, you really you lock a lot of people behind a wall. One of the super, super big bads of the X-Men universe is Mephisto, who is the devil. And everyone thought the devil was going to show up and the devil was going to split his soul. And that's who the kids were. Which that was where I tapped out. I was like, they're not going to do that. We got 9 episodes. they're not going to introduce a Thanos level villain like that just kind of casually at the end.
Speaking about like the big bad, the villains, we had Agnes, obviously. We had Agatha Harkness as a villain, more as like an internal villain because she was fully just like, I'm just interested in Wanda and all her crazy powers and I
Yeah.
want it. But we were also having this more like Marvel type villain in the background with director Tyler Hayward, who now is the like director of Sword. The Sword aspect of it felt more like this is us being like, this is the Marvel cinematic because like I need to plant something here in order to either like further create chaos or there just needs to be some sort of like, I don't know, like not government, but like something where they have to like get the man, like type of villain. Which I was like, I didn't really need it. I wish it was just Agatha and Wanda because I was so interested in just the storytelling of like that, you know, wanting to get her power and wanting the discovery of Scarlet Witch was so good that I was like, I just wanted to kind of live in that world.
Hayward was such a boring villain. I think the show knew that too, because Hayward's big defeat is a Deus Ex Machina of Darcy like driving a van into him and saying "Enjoy prison." Like I think you're right. It was absolutely just a way for them to introduce the concept of Sword, which in the comics is one of the big organizations. You have Shield, you have Sword, you have AIM, and you have Roxxon. Those are like the big four. Yeah, it felt it's a very MCU mistake. I feel to put in this like government. What is the military doing to sort of ground it in reality? I'm with you. I don't think we needed it as much as I'm happy that it gave us a reason to have Jimmy Woo and Darcy Lewis, and that was ultimately how we got more Monica. I didn't care.
There were a lot of great moments that I loved about the final episode. Obviously, the final standoff between Wanda and Agatha was great. But I also did feel like this is their way of Marvel being like, we're tying, you know, we're closing all the loops, we're tying it all up very nicely. So it did feel like a really clean episode where it was just it gave me what I needed just to satisfy my entire journey. But I will say, yeah, I was interested in more of those creative episodes where they were kind of like, we are just following this one woman's story and this one woman's like grief and like struggle to try and make sense of it all. And I really appreciated those episodes a little bit more than kind of like the Marvel, the MCUification of the ending. So, but I was like,
Yep.
I was satisfied. So I'm fine.
We have the show that it's about grief and it's about consequences, and we're seeing the consequences of the blip and the consequences of a specific moment in Infinity War that I don't think a lot of us thought about, which is that Wanda has to kill Vision in order to prevent Thanos from getting the stone, and then Thanos rewinds time to kill him again, and like that is the impetus for this. And like that's such a great, we get 9 episodes of reflecting on that, and then we get to the end and Wanda's kind of left like we get right into she's like forgiven for the fact that she held people hostage for all this time.
Yeah.
And but I really hope that something comes up of like she starts to suffer some consequences for the horrible abuse she put these strangers under. But it was so tidy to the point where even Monica has a line of saying they won't know what you sacrificed for them, and I'm like, no, they don't care because you ruined their lives. And I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that we get something. There's a fan theory that this is that the residents of Westview are the new X-Men, which I'm down for, just because they were in the Hex.
Whoa, are you serious?
Did I just drop a bomb on you? Yes. So that's at least that's a theory that I believe, is that we're gonna get, because we had all of this talk of it manipulates DNA, it changes people. We see Monica get powers from it. So theoretically, there are people who have been living in this for however long, weeks, months, that Wanda and Vision are there. And so the theory is that the people who lived under the Hex and have their realities warped as often as they did are going to develop mutant powers. And I think that is a really smart way to solve the problem, to introduce these characters without having us sit around and go, where the hell was Wolverine when Thanos was attacking Wakanda? Like, what? Why are... where were the X-Men, you know? I just blew your mind, and I love that.
I also thought it was very funny that Deborah Jo Rupp was like the wife of the boss who famously played the mom in that 70s show. So you would think someone who was as big of a sitcom fan
Yep.
as Wanda, who was like, let me cast the mom from that let me cast Red's mom for my reality.
Listen, wouldn't you though? Listen, if I'm WandaVisioning myself, like Betty White's all over.
I will have the full Golden Girls cast in my WandaVision reality. Absolutely.
I don't care about the scroll. Can I say that? Is that allowed? And so that first stinger did nothing for me, and I'm really excited for Captain Marvel too. I think Nia DaCosta is brilliant. I'm really excited to see what she does. I love Brie Larson. Having a scroll person go up to Monica and say, you need to go to the break room for Captain Marvel 2 because that's where you're going to go shoot after this, which is like basically what that first stinger is. I couldn't. It felt like an afterthought.
Wrap up. I really do appreciate that it was so focused on the Scarlet Witch, and at the heart of it, the end of the day, this is truly about this woman who was trying to grieve not only watching her like true love die, but A, it was because of her, and B, had to do it again. Like, it's, you don't think about like,
Yep.
okay, if this was a normal person, this is not normal. And obviously she would take everything that she did was justified. And Adam and I was joking of like, wow, it's so funny when like women do things like this in pop culture, like in movies and TV. You're like, well, you know what? It's justified. And, you know, women do go through a lot. And so I think it's, but when it's a male person that's doing that, like, he's trash. Joker sucks. I hate this.
Yeah, but no, you're right. I loved the fact that we got a we got a superhero origin story for a superhero that had kind of a not a great origin before. It was just sort of, it was a very standard, there were experiments and a magic stone and then she got powers. And I love that we got a whole series where she didn't understand her powers in a way that, I mean, the Scarlet Witch is one of the most powerful characters in all of comics. I loved that we got all this space for her to breathe in a way that normally, I mean, we'll see, right, that 15-minute Spider-Man tripping and like trying to jump and fall, and then after the end of the montage, he knows how all his powers work. And we get to see Wanda get messy and get really, really messy. And then when she finally gets a teacher in Agatha, she learns really quickly, beats her. And then we get that awesome stinger at the end where she's studying in the astral dimension, which also felt to me, it's a very MCU thing of, okay, Wanda, now you need to go report to the break room for Doctor Strange 2, which is like, that's what all of those visuals said. But I'm really excited and I'm really happy with all of the focus they put on this awesome character.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us to this episode of The Popsicle. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and comment below and let us know what you think about WandaVision. You can stream all 9 episodes now on Disney+. And if you're listening to us on the podcast, make sure you leave us a rating or review. Tell me more what you think of the show and what you'd like to hear more in the future. On episode 10, we do a book review every 5 episodes. So our next book will be A Pho Love Story by Lon Lee. The details of the episode will have a link where you can buy your own copy. Chris, you have been so amazing. Please plug anything you would like to plug at this point.
You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm LionheartChris7. I talk about nerd stuff like this. I talk about trans stuff. You can catch anything I write or anything I'm doing over there. Otherwise, go watch something that makes you happy. Just go enjoy it, and watch WandaVision, catch up on the MCU, because I think it's an exciting time to be a nerd.
Well, you can find me at RJ Food Rocks on all of your social media, and my YouTube channel, RJ Food Rocks, premieres a new video every week. The Popsicle is part of the Ampliverse. Find all of our shows on theampliverse.com and on the Ampliverse YouTube channel. Thank you again for listening. This has been The Popsicle. Bye.
Discovering voices, building worlds. The Ampliverse.